boy, how embarrassing. No, I wish I hadn't seen that. Am I the only one who thinks that this behavior is unbecoming of the office of Prime Minister? And it's like Trudeau all over again? You heard that right. Well, the cat is officially out of the bag. Canada has a major problem with lies coming from our leaders, and the gaslighting is only intensifying, but so are the receipts I've uncovered today. It's all very bad, but not as bad as our federal government's hiring practices, which, break so many laws. So why is nobody exposing it? But in a few years, it might not matter anyways, because liberals are going extinct, at least according to new data that came out. My name is Ali Daniel, and this is The Right Call. Like, share, subscribe, hype this video up. Any interaction on this channel helps push the truth out and maybe someday help break that CBC-induced coma that so many Canadians are under. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button, because if you like the truth, you found the right place. Oh boy, do we have some revelations for you today, so stick around because you don't want to miss this one. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Our first act as new government was to cut income taxes for 22 million middle-class Canadians.
Fact check. Yes, but no. The average Canadian will save $90 this year and $190 next year under personal income tax. And conservatives called it pocket change, which it totally is. I'm all for cutting taxes. I want to cut taxes. We need to cut taxes, but let's give an actual tax cut. $190 will not even make a dent in the cost of living that has been spiraling out of control due to your government. But don't miss an occasion to gaslight Canadians into thinking you're doing the most when you're actually making us broke.
Our first initiative this calendar year was to introduce the Canada Groceries and Essential Benefits for 12 million Canadians, meaning up to $1,890 for a family of four.
No, you did not introduce anything. What you did is you renamed the GST tax credit that was already in place into the Canadian Groceries and Essential Benefits. That's what you did. Then you bona fide it by 25%. Cool, right? But which self-respecting, prosperous nation needs to give money to their people in order for them to be able to afford basic living necessities? This is not the hallmark of a thriving society. Rather, it admonishes 11 years of your policy and tells everyone exactly where we stand. And by the way, this is not just free money coming out of thin air. Rather, they're giving back your money that they took in the first place through taxation, then spent untold amount in administrative fees to manage that money, then had to pay to remit it through bank payments, again at great cost, in order to give you back your own money that was in your pocket in the first place. It's a total scam and a great example of piss poor government management.
The first action we took as a majority government was to suspend the federal fuel excise tax, saving Canadians up to 10 cents a litre at the pump until Labor Day.
Sure, but tell the whole story, because Canadians are not seeing the benefit of this 10 cents tax cut. Why is that? Because our economy is so piss poor right now that the Canadian dollar is collapsing. And since we buy oil in US denominated dollars, well, we haven't seen any benefit, quite the opposite. Gas is increasing in price because the Canadian loonie is collapsing after 11 years of horrible economic management.
We've cut taxes on homes, incomes, and investment, all while protecting the vital social programs that Canadians rely on every day, including childcare, pharmacare, and dental care. We've just launched a new national food security strategy to spur more competition for your hard-earned dollar, to produce more food at home, and to lower grocery bills.
And yet Canada is seeing the highest food inflation in the entire G7 at 3.8% versus America's 3.3%, the UK's 3.2%, France's 2.8%, Germany's 2.6%, Italy's 2.3%, and Japan's 2%. So you can tell us you're doing a bunch of things. The results just ain't there.
We have the right plan, we're on track, but there's much, much more to do. And we have always recognized that some of the biggest payoffs from that plan will take time.
Oh, no doubt you're going to give yourself more time because, 11 years of Liberal government was not enough time. We need more time. How about we try something different? You've had your chance, you've had your go at it, and it's been a total failure. And by the way, your first thing you did with the majority government was not introduce all these things. It was pass a bunch of censorship bills, a bunch of hate speech bills, a bunch of control people's data and metadata and spy on them bills. Oh, and what else did you do? Yeah, you continued to manufacture a majority, an unelected majority, by bribing MPs from all parties. So that's what you really did. That's the truth. But the gaslighting must continue. Oh, you want more gaslighting? Well, the Prime Minister is facing House of Commons ethics hearing on whether he'll profit from the BC condo bailout. That $3.3 billion bailout to his rich developer friends, which also have connections to Brookfield Global Transition Fund. Those ones, Yes. And this is what the Prime Minister had to say about it when questioned.
Hi, Prime Minister. Mark Ramsey with the Toronto Star. There's a growing list of deliberations and government decisions that you're excluded from because of your various conflict of interest screens. Are you concerned that you have to outsource major decisions of your own government, including potentially one on this project?
Get ready for a word salad. Also pay attention to the that he does, which is a telltale sign that he's about to BS all of us.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure the last bit of your question follows, so I'm just going to say no. I'm going to say no to the whole thing. But more specifically, your logic doesn't hold. So, with respect to this project, number one. Number two, we have a very strong team. We have several things in this government. One is robust conflicts of interest and ethics screens, which we follow, and I follow, and I respect that process fully. Secondly, we have a very strong team in cabinet who make decisions, and that process is followed. And I have every confidence in their ability to make those decisions. And I think, to be clear, what happens with conflicts is that it's quite often the avoidance of perception of conflict as opposed to actual. Because, of course, my assets are in a blind trust. I actually don't know whether or not I have an actual conflict. Thank you. But others make those decisions. And
the whole blind trusting is such a deflection because you can still talk to the trustee. You still know what was in your portfolio before you placed it into a blind trust. And nothing stops you from giving directives to the trustee on what to do. But if you want the truth regarding blind trusts, don't listen to a Canadian politician. Rather, look to the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury.
Yesterday, the stock market took a pretty good jump on news that the shutdown might come to an end. A lot of people did very well in the stock market, I assume, and I assume that you probably were one of them, and good for you.
That would be an incorrect assumption because I had to sell all my stocks to become Treasury Secretary.
You sold them all?
Had
really?
to, yes.
But you have a blind trust, I would imagine.
There's no such thing as a blind trust.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for straightening me out.
Well, to me, that's common sense. If you're going to run for political office, if you're going to represent the public, you should divest from all of your personal holdings. You are now a public servant. You work on behalf of the people, not on behalf of you. And you should put to rest all potential conflicts of interest. Divest. You are now a public servant. You represent the country. Stop with the private stuff. Because yes, public service is hard and it shouldn't be open to just about anyone. We want the most competent person who has the best interest of the country at heart. See, that's the issue. People say all the time that Carney is incredibly brilliant. Carney is incredibly skilled. He's knowledgeable. He's smart. I agree. He's all of these things completely and totally. However, I don't think his interests are lined up with the interests of Canadians. I think his interests are lined up purely and solely for his own personal benefit and that of his friends. So it's not a question of competency. He's very competent. It's a question of allegiance and interest. And right now, with the massive, and this is the most conflicted prime minister we've ever had in the history of our country, well, no doubt there's massive worries around it. And good thing some people like myself and other independents are holding the prime minister to account, raising questions and investigating what's really going on, because the media is more than happy to just repeat blind trust when they know it's disingenuous. They know. And another thing they know is just how bad economically things are for us due to our own doing. And yet, the question has never really been asked. However, Renee Merrifield, a former member of Legislative Assembly for British Columbia, is more than happy to speak the truth.
Canada has been on a managed decline for the last decade. And we largely, pulled our poker chips, called the natural resource sector, and we've gone home. And I would say that Trump becomes a very easy, and don't get me wrong, I am not a Trump fan, but Trump becomes a very easy target and a very easy excuse. And really what we need to focus on is our own behavior. And we are the solution. We are the opportunity. We are and should be the wealthiest country in a time of crisis when we have one of the largest or fourth largest resource that's available for the world to have in a way that is far more humane and far better for emissions to extract. So why we would not actually, put those poker chips back on the table and become the resource giant that we should be and the energy superpower that we have every birthright to become is beyond me. I often say on the show with Jim that, energy is everything and energy is prosperity. And cheap energy is the greatest prosperity that we could afford to our citizens. And having said that, I think that if we spend too much time blaming Trump, that we actually don't deal with those issues at home. We haven't gotten a pipeline started. We don't have an economy. We've been in decline for the 3 out of the last 4 quarters. That is scary to me. There is no such thing as a technical recession. We are fully in recession. We have people at our doorstops that are literally irate because their power of that dollar that they're bringing home and working hard for has gone in and declined in its usefulness. And so, I'm looking at my next generation of, my 5 kids, 3 of my own, 2 step kids who are literally, beside themselves, not seeing a future, thinking, to themselves, how do I get out of Canada? How do I become one of the 155,000 that left of our, young professionals? And these are educated, and they're now saying, well, I got to get out before they charge me 500,000 to leave. That is devastating to me as an Okanagan, as a British Columbian, and as a Canadian.
Energy is prosperity, and she is so right. Every wealthy country, Norway, the United States of America, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, you name it, they all have one thing in common. They have energy security. They extract our natural resources and sell it on the world market. The world needs energy. It is the number one most important thing of any civilization, to the point where we categorize the development of a civilization based on its energy ability, or its ability to extract energy. We're not even a type 1 civilization yet because we have not harvested 100% of the energy of our planet. A type 2 civilization is one that harvests the energy of their local star. But regardless, this is how important energy is. And Canada being the 4th largest resource sector in the world, we could be one of the wealthiest countries. And yet we metaphorically and quite literally castrate ourselves on the altar of some ideologies that are completely buffoonery. They're buffoonery in order to save the world when we emit less than 2% of the carbon emission of the world. And yet we are here thinking, what can we do? It's Trump's fault. It ain't Trump's fault. It is 100% self-inflicted due to horrible government policy. This is why politics matters so much, because politics permeates every strata of our life. It affects our wealth. Wealth affects happiness, self-fulfillment, family creation. Heck, even health. Stress is incredibly detrimental to health. So why don't we get back on our horse, do what's right, become wealthy? We'll solve all the world's issues when we have the money to invest. But for now, people are having a hard time just feeding themselves. It is insanity. And it does piss me off. I'm mad. I laugh half the time, and I like to be a little cheeky in my reports. But it is unfathomable to me. I'm someone who thrives for excellence. I want the best for all of us, for myself, for my family, and yes, for you. And yet, the people we elect to represent us, or that we think have our best interests at heart, are more than happy to sell us off if it means they make a penny and watch us decline, watch us fight for scraps. We're getting into a point of no return. And when I talk about crazy ideologies, this is the perfect example of pure insane ideology being rammed through by our government.
We got a text that said, let's see, I work for the government. I see a lot of postings for BIPOC only, and it clearly states Caucasian not permitted to apply. So I want to be clear. My money is good enough for you to take. My money is good enough for you to take. Spend on things that you think are important. But I am not valuable enough to apply for a job with you. You could see why this might be a little bit upsetting, no? You could see why this might have some people very frustrated, no? They'll say, no, it's not racism. It's a remedy against past racism. You can see why that's, in French we say, bête comme mes pieds. Dumber than my feet, right? You can see that, right?
And yes, this is 100% racism. Government positions being open only to BIPOC individuals and explicitly saying Caucasians not permitted to apply is beyond vile and disgusting, reprehensible, and illegal as well. Your tax dollars of every citizen, including the white ones, are good enough to take, spend, and waste on ideologies. But you're not good enough to apply for a job because you're not valuable enough due to your skin color. This is not equity. This is not remedy. This is just straight up racism, pure and simple. And liberals love to defend this as, well, doing the right thing, as usual. But this might not go on for much longer because according to new data, liberals are actually going extinct. And nowhere is it better represented than with this German feminist named Verena Brundesweiger, who urges Europeans and white people not to have children, claiming that pro-natalists want to control women and keep refugees out. And she was quoted saying, "My bloodline ends with me. I would take all immigrants and refugees in because we ruined the world. Ruined the world? You mean increase the living standards of everyone globally, creating an environment where technology and standards of living are so high and so prevalent that child mortality is going down, global wealth is going up, living standards are going up, life expectancy is going up, comfort and quality of life is going up. Everything is trending upwards globally, clearly not locally in Canada, but in the world. We've abolished slavery, given rights to people, which is an anomaly because for the history of humanity, people lived under tyranny and absolute rule, and we've given them a chance. We enfranchised them. We've created the rule of law, civilizations where people are equal, and you're going to make it seem like somehow we've destroyed the world? What a weird thing to say. And this explains perfectly the mentality of people on the left. They exhibit this deep self-loathing, this hatred, this disdain of themselves. But it isn't enough for them to hate themselves. They have to project it upon everyone around them and push you to hate yourself and all your fellow countrymen. But here's the fact. You're the result of an unbroken chain of pioneers, warriors, fighters, explorers, settlers, survivors who risked everything, facing impossible odds in order for you to be here today. They've overcame wars and disease and famine and tyranny and poverty and the elements for you to be here today. If you want to throw it all away, that's your choice. If you want to be the weakest link in millenniums of success, be my guest. But I, on the other hand, encourage you to live up to your true potential because you have hundreds of ancestors, true victors living through you right now. And your duty is not only to live up to their sacrifices, but in turn for you to sacrifice in order to ensure a better tomorrow for your posterity. But oddly enough, it's not all doom and gloom because here's an encouragement for the future. Conservative women have significantly higher birth rates and desire larger families than liberal women. This gap is driven primarily by higher marriage rates, a tendency to marry at a younger age, and deeply held traditional views on family. When it comes to the parenthood gap, only 40% of liberal women aged 25 to 35 are parents, compared to 71% of conservative women in the same age bracket. And when it comes to family size, conservative women average 2.1 children over their lifetime, hitting the replacement level, thank God. While moderate women average 1.8, which is below replacement rate, and liberal women average 1.5. And this gap is only just accelerating, as we can see right here, both in the developed world, so the Western world, and in the US. Canada obviously is part of the developed world. It is accelerating. Less and less liberal women are having kids, whereas conservative women have seen a drop in fertility, a few little points, but we are still way above the replacement rate, which is a good thing. And keep in mind that parents are one of the biggest predictor of the political ideology, the upbringing, effectively, of their children, instilling in them proper values that they will carry into adulthood and repeat over and over again, hopefully, with their children. So given enough time, it might seem like the liberal ideology would just go extinct. Well, that's if we don't continue with mass migration, that is.
Key on immigration is the capacity to integrate people into your society. And now, the first generation of immigrants that come is always going to find it difficult because they're leaving the world, the country, the language, the culture that they left. And there's always going to be a little bit of, sometimes a lot of adjustment to a new society that they've come to for prosperity, for more freedom, for whatever. And doing what we can to support those people as they arrive and get them the opportunity to work, to contribute, to build a life for themselves is really important. But for me, the biggest measure of success on immigration is what we do for the second generation.
Well, could you believe it? Justin Trudeau lecturing a foreign nation, he's in Finland right there, lecturing Finns on why they should take in more immigrants, which is interesting because the Finns are actually one of the least tolerant people on immigration, and they're trying to preserve their way of life, and rightfully so. But no, Justin, we shouldn't be doing things for second generation immigrants, because by the second generation, they should have integrated. They should now be Canadians. As such, why we would give them favors? Unless, and I agree with you on this point, we should give all Canadians favor equally. We should always put Canadians first, above and beyond anything. Our government is there to represent us, and we should prioritize us at all times. Now, down south in the US, there was a major Supreme Court decision on various topics. The first one is, rightfully so, giving the President of the United States of America the right to actually, administer the executive branch of the government, aka hire and fire people. Yeah, I can't believe I actually had to go to the Supreme Court to verify, to acknowledge that the President has the right to let go federal employees. Anyways, one thing, however, it said that he cannot unilaterally fire the Federal Reserve chairman, or chairwoman in this case, which again is a little bit weird because we say the Federal Reserve is supposed to be an arm somehow of the executive branch. It responds to the US government, but now it says that it's independent, which is not going to do good when it comes to the conspiracies about the Fed. Another thing is that police must obtain a warrant when seeking a sweep of cell phone location data. Well, isn't it good to see a country that actually respects privacy and people's right to be secure in their person and their affairs? Something that we have now completely sideswiped in Canada with Bill C-22. It's fascinating to watch what one little land border can do. We're living in like this dystopia to the north, whereas the US is thriving economically and actually protecting individuals' rights. Now, of course, former FTC commissioner was a little sad to hear the US Supreme Court decision, because taking away power from unelected individuals and giving it to an actual elected president is always a bad thing. What a shame. Maybe she's fearing for her job now. And now merging Canada and the US, how interesting. CTV has a new US political expert correspondent that now comes on the TV to give his solid opinion about Canada-US relationships. Let's take a second. Can you guess who that might be? You're definitely wrong anyways. Yes, it's really Hunter Biden. It's Hunter Biden on CTV. Oh, let's listen to that one.
You weigh in on certain, political things and you offer your analysis. And I'm sure you know that Canadians are kind of, at times at this point, consumed by what's going on in the United States because it's having such a direct economic impact on us. I was thinking as I was reading through what you've posted, like, if you have arrived at an analysis about why...
Actually, you know what? Why is CTV platforming a crack addict from the United States who has all of the world's personal biases against the current Trump administration and who is irrelevant in today's political landscape? What kind of skills does he have? What kind of accomplishment? What kind of experience? I mean, when did he even have a original thought or analysis that wasn't fed by his father or discovered through enlightenment in a crack pipe?
Do you think Donald Trump won in the first place?
I think that one of the reasons that he won this last time was that there's an enormous premium paid for dividing people. I think that we all kind of carry around in our pockets this.
Yeah, you know what? Screw it. Don't care. There's not a single person I care to hear less about and whom I trust less and who I give a crap less about than Hunter Biden. So moving on from that. So this is a sad story and there's a reason why I bring it up. But first, in the summer of 2025, a woman from Sault Ste. Marie's fell for an AI-generated deepfake video of Mark Carney endorsing a fake crypto platform backed by the Bank of Canada. Scammers convinced her to invest her $650,000 retirement fund and take out a $300,000 mortgage. So a total scam of almost $1 million that she was robbed from. Now, this is actually very sad. And I don't want to harp on the victim because it is very tragic. But the reason I bring this up is because when one wonders how a huge chunk of the Canadian population still supports the Liberals and Carney in spite of all economic indicators showing a continued worsening decline under his leadership, this is the reason. There's a portion of society that surrenders their agency to authority, that believes anything and everything portrayed by the mainstream media, the pundits, the experts, and the government. Truth, facts, data, none of it matters. Because if it sounds good and comes from someone who supposedly is an expert and knows best, then it must be true. So the fact of the matter is, even if the deepfake AI was ridiculously convincing, the only reason why she decided to invest so much money is because she thought Carney was promoting it. With zero critical thought, zero research, zero, is this a good idea? No. The Prime Minister said so. It must be good. It must be true. And now you know why. Sadly, and I know I have a lot of people from that age cohort, and you guys are all incredible, especially for trying to get as much information from independent sources as you can. But there's a lot of your peers that are plugged into the mainstream media with zero critical thought, and they just regurgitate anything and everything they hear. And this is very dangerous. This is not a behavior, by the way, that is seen as much with Gen Xers, even less so with millennials, but downright almost never with the Zoomers. I'm not a Zoomer. I'm a millennial. I'm 34 years old. However, I have high hopes for the next generation. And my son is a Generation Alpha. I'm really curious to see how they're going to come of age. And we sure hope they never turn up to become someone like this.
You guys vote?
Yeah. Carney won, so...
Is that a good thing?
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Why did you vote for Carney?
Because he makes most sense out of people, so...
What makes the most sense to you from his policies?
I don't know.
Is there one specific policy that you were really interested in of his?
No.
Okay, thanks for your time.
All right, bye-bye.
The Liberal Party summed up in one video, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you've enjoyed this report and would like to get yourself involved, aside from liking, sharing, subscribing, hyping, commenting, all the good stuff, if you want to take it a step further and you have a bit of loose change and you want to support the mission that I'm on into shining as much light as we can in Canada and the US and the Western world, and also doing the job that our media sadly won't do, well, I have a Patreon, $8 a month, or a PayPal link, one-time donation, anything. $2, $10, $100, everything's appreciated. You have no idea how much of a difference it makes. I'm independent. I don't take money from any political organization. And in order to stay independent, well, there's sadly bills to be paid. And in the meantime, if you haven't seen last report, it is hilarious because we have Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, one of the largest US bank, that completely grills Mark Carney's middle power strategy, effectively cozying up to Europe. Facts that are hilarious as much as they are sad. So click right here, go watch it. You don't want to miss it. But for the time being, my name's Ellie Daniel, and I'll see you next report.